Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. And today we're getting some NBA. Two main big moves happened in the NBA in the past week or so, and I gotta talk about them because it was kind of both of them unexpected and I would say unprecedented in their own way. And we're gonna get into both of them. So, welcome. So first, I think I'm going to go in chronological order here. We're going to talk about the Lakers hiring J.J. Redick, an outstanding basketball mind, as we know from hearing his podcast, hearing what he did with LeBron, hearing him on ESPN talking like actual basketball when some of his counterparts on First Take don't. And now you don't see him on First Take not that much anymore, which, anywho. I have my own personal gripes with JJ Redick, but I feel like that could be a whole nother video to get into. But in the case of him coaching, he was hired a 4-year deal after the Lakers tried the Hail Mary with Dan Hurley, the UConn coach, who has won back-to-back national championships. But they seemed to lowball him on the offer, and if you want a guy to leave a job as comfortable and as safe as that, you really have to send out your best offer possible. And sending him a contract to make him the 6th highest paid coach in the league doesn't really do that. That leaves little to be desired when trying to get a name that big, right? And I don't know. I feel like he would be. I don't know how Dan Hurley would do in the pro realm because it's just so different than the NBA, especially with the Lakers, where you really don't have that much control, and it's the hottest seat in the league. If you got 2 years, right? Even if you win a championship one of those 2 years, you don't get it's not secure that you're gonna get that beyond that, because it only takes one bad year for everyone to hate you, and for you to be the easy scapegoat there in Los Angeles on a roster that has talent but is not talented, right? Like Anthony Davis, LeBron James, you automatically think they should be in it every year. But it's a constant moving pieces around it. They seem to always figure out halfway, and it's too late, and it's never quite enough to compete in the West. So it's just a tough job, man. And those fans, I mean, I'm a Philly fan, so I understand unforgiving fans, but I feel like with LA fans, it gets dangerous to an extent. I don't like talking bad about too many fan bases because I feel like a lot of times when it happens against Philly fans, they do it on a reflection of the city and not necessarily the people, and it gets a little sketchy there. So I don't like doing that. But when you see in the pattern of what the feedback is, it gets harsh. It gets harsh, right? And I'll leave it at that. But yeah, so the Dan Hurley deal doesn't work, and before that, Shams put out a tweet that J.J. Redick could be the coach, and then the Dan Hurley stuff came out. It's I guess Shams was wrong, yada yada, and now we're back on the J.J. train, and it is gonna be J.J. He signed the contract, and there's a few things that kind of feed this as being an unserious hire. And I think one, we can start with, he has zero coaching experience at all. He coached his 8-year-old's basketball team, which is a little different. I would say the adjustment from UConn to the pros would be a little easier than an 8-year-old rec league to the pros. I would say a little bit more of a jump. And it's as I said, J.J. Redick is obviously a brilliant basketball mind. He knows his stuff. You can tell. He knows what he's talking about. But there's a difference between knowing ball and being a good basketball coach, right? Coaching is much more than X's and O's. X and O's you can always figure out because it's all about the cast around you, who you bring around you to help you with the defensive and the offensive end. And obviously you want a guy that's smart with the X and O's that can draw up the correct plays at the right time. play calling is definitely an underrated aspect to basketball because it's a free-flowing game, but it's important. It's important to game planning when you get in those situations, figuring out what to do. What do you do right after a timeout? What do you do in a game-closing decision? Who do you go to in the last 2 minutes, right? It's all important decisions. And I think JJ can make those decisions, and I feel like he has the knowledge to. But it's if coaching was only that, I think he'd do fine. But what we don't know is how can he command a locker room. I don't know how much people liked him as a teammate 100% when he was in a leadership role on the Clippers and the Sixers. A lot of people like him, but also you could see a lot of people maybe don't, right? And again, also leadership role on a team is different than a coach, right? Like if they go on a 5-game losing streak, right? And they're on a long road trip, they're tired. LeBron is there, Anthony Davis, they're like, there's not much you can say to them because they have reached that peak where they probably just think they know better than you, right? You can be a podcast buddy with them all you want. So when it comes to a player and coach relationship, it can get testy fast, and I think we've seen it with LeBron before. Are you going to be able to rally the locker room, have them play for you, right? I think we see how big of a deal it is when players are playing for the coaches or like in spite of the coaches, right? And it's so important. And I guess time will tell because we really don't know. We don't know if he'll be good. We don't know if he'll be bad. But it's a question mark when you hire someone who hasn't even been in the front office, who hasn't even been in a team, in a front office or staff position, to expect him to take the reins in the hottest seat and the hardest job in the league. The hardest job in the league is the Lakers coach, right? As I said before, the pressure is just unreal. It's always championship or bust, especially when LeBron's on your team, especially when you could leave, right? Like, there's the Bronny stuff, too. Like, that's a whole other obstacle. You have the Anthony Davis, like, is he going to play enough games? Is he still, like, that? He's putting up numbers, but is he that impactful? How do you do that, right? And what's the right roster moves to make? Especially when they don't have that many assets. They just don't. So it's just he's kind of got what he got to work with. He's not going to be able to build his own thing, build from the ground up, which is kind of why I want him to take the Pistons job, because that, like, it's a bunch of young players who had a rough experience with Monty Williams, and you could kind of, like, grow with them. If I was JJ, I would, like, look strongly at that job other than the Lakers job. Call me crazy or not, but that would be a more attractive job to me than the Lakers job. And I'm not saying the Pistons were looking for JJ Redick, but I'm saying if that was the option, I would definitely consider the Pistons job over the Lakers job. So, I mean, we'll see. I think the other thing is how is the other team going to feel that they brought in LeBron James podcast co-host? It's like this doesn't help the GM allegations, right? They said he wasn't involved in the head coaching conversation at all, and I find that very hard to believe, especially with who they ended up going with. There's a joke in the NFL that's saying, like, if you want Aaron Rodgers, you got to get his friends too, and it's looking like that again. And this time with the head coach, so it'll be interesting because, man, we've seen LeBron cut off some friendships over basketball real quick. So that podcast stream might not be a thing in too long. All right, let's talk about some other disappointments. The Chicago Bulls. I'm wearing my Chi-Town hat. It's for the Chicago Sky, which I'm a big fan of, but I'm wearing it in solidarity for Chicago fans today. It just an unbelievable turn of events. Maybe not unbelievable because we kind of expected this from. I think you can expect this from Chicago, but this seems like a new low, right? Trading one of the best role players, one of the best on-ball defenders, really can still produce isn't a zero on offense. He can shoot the rock. And you trade him to the Thunder for Josh Giddey. And I've heard a bunch of people say this. What it kind of was when we saw the trade come in first from the notification, it was Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso. Okay, we'll wait for the pick compensation. That should help it because the Thunder have 32 million picks. There's going to be a few picks in there. Maybe a first, just maybe a couple seconds. We've seen like the deals where it's like a player and then like 5 seconds, something like that. That never came. The total package was Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso. Josh Giddey, a player that was a complete liability in the playoffs because he cannot do anything other than pass. So when he does not have the ball, he is a negative on the court. And the games where he's been really good, where he's scored like the 30, scored 17, it's either been him as the main ball handler because Shea was down or whatever. But every time he looks to produce, he needs to have the ball in his hands. It's like the Ben Simmons kind of effect, right? And it's pretty bad. One of the worst trades I've ever seen because we saw teams genuinely offer a first or a couple of firsts for Alex Caruso. Contenders, right? And the Thunder, another point that's been brought up, the Thunder could have really used him in January doing the trade at the deadline. I don't know if they just didn't think about it or if like the offer wasn't at this where it was now, or they just didn't think that they would need a player like Alex Caruso to give up whatever. But it's like that's a deal you do because they could probably be in the finals with Alex Caruso instead of Josh Giddey. It would have definitely. I think they would definitely beat the Mavericks for sure. I think they should have beat the Mavericks anyway, but definitely if they had Alex Caruso, for sure. It's just I think there's more bad to say about the Bulls than good about the Thunder for this. The good about the Thunder is you have another elite perimeter defender. Your perimeter defense is going to be unreal. It's going to be some of the best we've ever seen. It's just going to be unreal how you're going to have a guy who's an all-NBA defender and who's an all-effort guy, and you just add him to his team where they just have a bunch of these guys. And I think if they do a few moves on this level, they're going to be easily the favorites in the West. I might have the favorites in the West already, because you expect another jump from J-Dub, you expect another jump from Shea, and then you add Alex Caruso to the mix, and it's only going to be up from there. And you take the equation of seeing what situation you have to play Gideon or not out of the equation, and it's just like it's gonna be so good. It's addition by subtraction, but also by addition, right? So you got a double whammy there. Now the Bulls. The Bulls. Come on, guys. I mean, I think what's so impressive to me is the commitment to mediocrity that they constantly have. They're like the New Orleans Saints of basketball, where they will constantly want to hover at that, like, just like maybe a playoff team, maybe not, because it works for them because they sell out every game. It doesn't matter. Bulls fans are that devoted to their brand of basketball and what that means to the city that they will still sell out every game. So there's no urgency to be bad because they don't want to be bad because they don't want to lose those sales, right? But it's a lot worse. It's a lot worse to stay in this mediocre range than to tank a few years. And it's not when they put together the core of Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Alex Caruso, it's like that team was a 1 seed, and it's like, okay, we could see some, but when Lonzo went down, it's just like there's no way you're getting a championship level team out of this. So that's when they should have hit the reset. Right then. When DeMar's value was at his highest, when Zach's value was at his highest, when Alex Caruso was still at a high value. Now he was. Now you could have got a lot more than this, but And then you figure out the Lonzo Ball situation as you figure it out. But that's when you should have done it. But you waited 2 or 3 years, and now DeMar could either re-sign and you're stuck with that contract with an old DeMar DeRozan you're gonna have to sign him for like 4 years, right? You're gonna have to trade Zach LaVine probably to make money work or whatever, and his value could not be lower right now. He's always hurt. The contract's bad. It's like he's an elite scorer, but like he doesn't give you much other than that, and he doesn't play that much, right? So it's like you really missed the mark here. We don't even know if they're doing like a fire sale now. Like they're probably going to trade Zach LaVine, but are they just going to retool around DeMar DeRozan and put together another mid team? And it's like you see the rise of Kobe White, and then you add a player who needs the ball in his hand to succeed. When you saw success in Kobe White when the ball was in his hands, it's like there's no thinking going on. There's no thought process in how do we make this team better, or how do we make this team work so we can make this team better. They are just throwing stuff together, and I feel so bad for Chicago Bulls fans because like I'm a Philly guy, and the Sixers have not known how to build around Joel Embiid for a long time, forever. They've never known, but at least we had like competitive rosters out there. The Bulls roll out mediocre roster after mediocre roster and no sign of wanting to get better. There's no motivation. There's nothing. And this trade, I felt the frustration because it encapsulates everything, right? It's the being okay with being mediocre, thinking you're outsmarting everyone because you got the younger player. It's like, you got the younger player, but what is Josh Giddey's ceiling? What's the potential there? Right? Like, did you not see the playoffs that I saw? Like, yes, Lonzo Ball developed, and I know you think Josh Giddey's your next Lonzo Ball, but let's be real here. If you really thought that, you still didn't need to do what you did to get him. You could have got some picks. You could have twisted their arm to give you some picks. It's embarrassing, honestly. And it's Chicago Bulls fans, y'all deserve better. And if I was y'all, I wouldn't go to games until they get this right. Because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And the 90s get further and further away every year. And you can't live in that forever. Right? Even the D-Rose era is getting years and years away. You got to figure this out. It's pretty embarrassing. All right. Comment, like, subscribe. Tell me what you think. Road to 100 subs. Let's get it. Share it. Do all that. All right. Peace out.